Hello, Alex here, and in this video I want to talk about replacing the focusing screen within the frame of a Rolleiflex SL66. If you're interested in just how to take the screen out and pop a replacement in if you have one in a frame, Nico did a video on that a while ago and I'll link to it up there and in the description down below. In my case, I have to replace the ground glass within the frame itself, and that's what I want to show you here. So let's get into it. One of the main reasons that my Rolleiflex SL66 kit was such a screamingly good deal is that the included focusing screen is not a photography focusing screen. It's a photomicrography focusing screen. And this makes sense given what the previous owner's father used it for, and I won't talk about that in much detail for the sake of privacy. But for photography, it's pretty much useless. So while most of the image moves in and out of focus as you would normally expect, the most critical part, the central portion, doesn't have a micro prism or a split prism, but is instead always perfectly in focus, no matter how out of focus the image actually is. For the technical applications it's intended for, it's absolutely incredible and cannot be beaten by a normal photographic focusing screen. But for photography, it's literally the worst possible option, and fine, that was reflected in the price, but I still have to go and change it. So this is in principle a toolless job, but just to make things easier, I am wearing gloves because you have to handle the focusing screen a bit more than with something like the 124G. So aside from the camera, I've got the gloves, the new focusing screen, and a guitar pick to act just as a plastic spudger. The first thing you need to do is to remove either the waist level finder or the prism, depending on what you're using, and it's the same either way. Unlike a Hasselblad, you don't have to remove the magazine to do this. You just push these buttons on the side and then lift the hood clean off. One piece, nice and simple. If your camera is set up properly, you'll have no space back here. You won't be able to fit a pick or anything like that in there, and you'll have a lot of dead space in the front, and this is where we're going to push the focusing screen up to. So we need to see these two clips here and here. These are bent downwards and catching into these tabs at the front of this gate, if you want to call it that. So we need to just pull the focusing screen forward a little bit and lift each of these up so that they go over the front, and push the focusing screen forward, and it'll just lift out in one piece then just by this little cloth tab. Very quickly, a closer look at the body and the focusing screen frame itself will show you why you don't need to actually shim to do any focus calibration. There are 4 slots here, 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 and here, and those are what these 4 tabs sit into. So when you push the focusing screen down and slide it back, that's what locks the focusing screen into place. And the bare edges of the focusing screen, not covered by these tabs, sit directly on this middle space here and the 4 corners. So that dictates where the base side of the underside of the focusing screen goes, which dictates your focal plane and your infinity focus for your focusing screen. So because it's pushed down to a flat, fixed surface, it doesn't make a difference how thick the replacement focusing screen is. It will always be in the correct position, because if you install the screen correctly, the image will be projected onto this frosted side down here. Putting the body aside for a second, you see the front of the focusing screen up here, and at the base side you see there are these 2 little silver tabs that latch back and down, catching and holding in the focusing screen itself. So this is part of why I'm wearing gloves. I'm going to just put this down on my finger, push these tabs backwards with the guitar pick, and just push the focusing screen up out of the frame. Actually inserting the replacement focusing screen into the frame is a very simple job, but there are 2 things you need to take note of. The first is that this is not a square focusing screen because the mirror in the body itself is not square. The long side goes to the front and back, and the short side goes to the sides. The second thing is to make sure that no matter what type of focusing screen you have, you install it with the frosted side facing down and the glossy shiny side facing upwards. I am using a Rick Oleson Brightscreen, so I can also use the fact that the microprism itself is convex to orient it upwards. All you have to do is insert it so that these clips go on top and push it under these 4 tabs so that these springs under here will correctly push it and hold it into place, and then just make sure these 2 silver tabs at the end have properly caught it so that the screen is inserted all the way, or that's your indicator that the screen has been inserted all the way. After a quick dust, we can install the replacement screen in its housing into the body. So just place it in the front portion of the gate here. And then, I'm not sure how best to do this, so I'm just going to push down with my fingers on either side to make sure those metal black tabs catch in those slots that I showed you earlier. and use the guitar pick to push backwards. And that is back as far as it will go. And then just make sure that these two metal tabs here at the front are not sitting over this gate, but they have bent downwards, or they are pointing downwards. They are thin metal, they could get bent and you might have to bend them back downwards. Just make sure they are caught appropriately in these slots here. At this point, the focusing screen won't move forwards much, or at all really, if you push it forwards. That depends on how tightly attached these are. And then you just need to reinstall the focusing hood or the prism. To do that, you can't just drop it in and push it down, but you can just put it there and push the buttons and it will fall into place. But this thing is absolutely incredible. I can immediately tell just how much brighter, as well, especially in the corners, but as well as how much clearer it is. It's hard to describe the clarity that this new screen offers over the original. So swapping out the focusing screen for this camera really is not a big job, and in fact you could have one frame and multiple focusing screens for different types of photography if you so wished. You could have a split prism for architectural and geometric photography, then a micro prism for portraits and macro, that kind of thing. You could do whatever you wanted. For me, going from the photomicrography screen to an actual photography screen was the main reason, obviously, but I also wanted to show off that photomicrography screen in this video because it's just weird. If any of you out there are using one of those today, for some reason, please drop a comment below or send me an email because I would love to hear your story and hear what that screen specifically does for you. Of course, I didn't have to go for a Rick Oleson Brightscreen specifically, and the process will be the same regardless of what type of screen you're swapping in and out, whether it's a Fresnel plastic thing from eBay or a Rick Oleson screen or an OEM Rolleiflex screen. I went for it just because the price difference between it and one of the alternatives was relatively small, like 26, 27 euros. And I have one of these screens already in another camera, so I know how they are. I can trust and rely on them. I wasn't really willing to pay the price and take a risk on something that I was unfamiliar with. I think that's all I have to say for this video, so I'll leave it there. Stay safe, and bye-bye for now. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram at Shako1277 for new pictures every day. If you liked this video and enjoy what I do on the channel, please consider subscribing or checking out my Patreon, where the tiers start at just €1 per month.